Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out what people ate to survive in the Victorian era.
Named after Queen Victoria, who reigned in the United Kingdom from 1837 until she passed in 1901, the Victorian era was a period filled with shifting trends, attitudes, and innovations. Food itself was part of these changes, and the Victorians displayed resourcefulness and creativity in the dishes they prepared. Victorian Britons were a diverse bunch with eclectic tastes and habits, and the food they consumed often reflected their disparate sensibilities. Today, we're going to take a look at what people ate to survive in Victorian England. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what other culinary history you would like to hear about. Okay, for our entree today, we recommend this Victorian-styled video. I think it's just delicious.
Strawberry.
Among other things, Victorians were enthusiastic horticulturalists, and they loved to tinker with and create their own varieties of fruits and vegetables. One of the most successful fruits to emerge in the late Victorian period was the Royal Sovereign strawberry.
Wow.
Developed by Thomas Laxton in 1892, it was luscious and tasty. Botanists of the 19th century were on something of a quest to develop a strawberry that was as large as the American variety, but as sweet as the European variety. And Laxton's creation scored on both counts.
Okay. For some reason I heard that the modern-day strawberry was created in Versailles, but maybe that's some Louis XIV propaganda.
His Royal Sovereign strawberry was such a hit that Country Life Illustrated declared in 1899 that it was one of the finest strawberries ever raised.
Full English breakfast. I've heard of that with the beans.
McDonald's gave us the Egg McMuffin breakfast combo. IHOP gave us the Rooty Tooty Fresh and Fruity breakfast plate. And Victorian England gave us the full English breakfast, typically encompassing a spread of fried eggs, bacon, baked beans, grilled tomatoes, and mushrooms. The full English breakfast remains, to this day, a popular meal. However, prior to the Victorian era, only the wealthy could afford to eat eggs and meat for breakfast. That slowly changed throughout the 19th century as the standard of living increased for the vast majority of the population. By the end of the era, even working-class Victorians had the time and money to enjoy a more elaborate breakfast.
Nice. Beer? I know it wasn't invented.
It may be hard to believe now, but one of the most popular beverages of the Victorian era was beer. Okay, it's actually not that hard to believe. In fact, by 1865, British brewers made 25 million barrels of beer annually. Though it was widely consumed, Victorian beer had a relatively low alcohol content, usually less than 3%. You might be wondering why beer was so popular if it did not get you drunk. Well, the truth is that the drinking water of the era, especially in crowded cities like London, could easily become contaminated with sewage. Consuming beer was therefore a safer and significantly less disgusting option for Victorians looking to quench their thirst.
Fermented carbonated barley was safer to drink than the water. Our water is probably not that much cleaner, really, because we have all those forever chemicals in it, like plastics and metals. Maybe we should all start drinking beer again like that. 3% alcohol content, that's maybe like half of what it is now. So, like, you could have 2 beers and it's like drinking 1. I kind of like that. Bullseyes. Like
Since
literally?
The climate in the UK made growing sugar pretty much impossible, it had to be imported. No one knows exactly when the importation of sugar began, but some believe it might have been as early as 1264 in the court of Henry III. It wouldn't be until the 14th century that sugar came into general use. But even then, it was incredibly expensive, commanding prices that in today's money would be about 50 English pounds or 70 American dollars per pound. As you might expect, it remained a luxury for the ultra-rich. However, thanks in part to the end of taxes on imported sugar in 1874, candy quickly became popular and could be found virtually everywhere in the Victorian world. One of the most popular candies was the bullseye. Named after the eyes of a bull, the sweet treat wasn't as unappetizing as its namesake. The red and white striped, sugary candies were actually mint-flavored.
Like peppermint. Cereals, okay.
The 19th century saw the birth of what is arguably the most popular breakfast item of all time, cereal. American entrepreneurs like Sylvester Graham developed breakfast cereals to provide healthy food to the masses. Some took it even further. John Kellogg, for example, developed cornflakes as a bland food to curb people's sexual impulses because, apparently, he thought that was something people wanted.
That's so
Processed
weird.
breakfast cereal gained traction in mid-century America and continued to gain popularity over time.
Because it was
Anyone
profitable.
who's been to a grocery store recently could testify to that, as virtually every supermarket in existence today has an entire aisle devoted to products like Frosted Flakes, Cheerios, honeycombs, and dozens of others. Britons, on the other hand, didn't really take to the stuff the way Americans did. Instead, British Victorians generally preferred to eat gruel, oats, and porridge. Once you've had Cap'n Crunch, you'll never go back.
What's gruel?
They wouldn't really start to...
Cap'n Crunch is so delicious. Oh, it's just oats, wheat, rye, or rice, heated and boiled in water, or milk. Okay, that's not bad. It's like... It sounds gross. It sounds a lot more disgusting than it actually is. It's like oatmeal. That's not bad. I'd eat that.
They wouldn't really start to enjoy prepared cereal until the beginning of the 20th century.
Cheap vegetables.
Working and middle-class Victorians supplemented their diet with cheap vegetables. Cabbage in particular was affordable and a good source of nutrients.
That's good for you, right?
The famous housekeeping expert, Isabella Beeton, even recommended fried cabbage as a good option for economical meals that would feed a whole family. But there were a lot more options in this department than just cabbage. Onions were also a widely used staple, given their year-round availability and dirt-cheap price. Leeks, watercress, artichokes, carrots, turnips, broccoli, and peas were similarly common.
That's healthy stuff.
Although some of these were more subject to seasonal availability concerns.
Oh, sure. Cheap meats. That's scary. Don't eat that cheap meat.
By the middle
y'all.
of the era, things were looking up, dietarily speaking, and most Victorians were consuming some kind of meat at least once during the week. Not every cut or type
Once
of
a
meat was
week.
the same, though. Wealthier Victorians, as you might expect, enjoyed the best pieces of
looks
succulent
good.
meats, while their poor counterparts had to make do with the cheaper cuts. Butchers sold most parts of the animal, making everything from the head to the hoof available for purchase. A budget-conscious Victorian could buy a sheep's head for 3 pennies, which would be just about 2.5 pounds
gross.
today.
I don't know how people dealt with it in Britain, but I know in America, cheap meat became barbecue because people tried to take the meat and make it palatable, so they would cook it for 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever, and it would get tender and delicious. And it's one of the greatest cuisines ever. Denby Dale pie? Never heard of it.
Civic rituals and festivals punctuated life in the Victorian era, and food always played a role in such festivities. No one made celebratory food better than the community of Denby Dale in West Yorkshire. To mark national occasions, bakers in the town were known to create giant meat and potato pies. Some of the events that warranted a giant pie were Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo in 1815, the repeal of Corn Laws in 1846, and the
Corn
50th
Laws?
anniversary of Queen Victoria's reign in 1887. In the year 2000, the University of Huddersfield School of Engineering baked the Millennium Pie, which, according to reports, measured 40 feet by 8 feet, held 2 tons of potatoes, a ton of onions, 5 tons of beef, and nearly 200 pints of John Smith's bitter.
Oh, they put beer in there. Hang on. What are corn laws? Oh, okay. They're like tariffs and restrictions. It caused the price of all the grains to increase. Okay, that's something to celebrate. Discount on food? Nice. MEDLARS. Don't know what that is. Never heard of it.
Victorians were keen gardeners, and their enthusiasm meant that they often sampled the fruits of their labors. The medlar, an aggressively hard fruit, wouldn't be an obvious choice for a meal. But Victorians gave it a go by letting it rot slightly. This softened the fruit,
Oh.
thereby making it edible. Softened medlars could be eaten as is, but many Victorians opted to turn it into medlar cheese or jelly. Medlars,
I
it's
don't
worth
know about
noting,
that.
weren't unique to the Victorians. They dated way back before Victoria's era, and even merited mentions in the works of Chaucer, Dekker, and Middleton. No less than 4 mentions of medlars can be found in the plays of William Shakespeare, including in Timon of Athens, As You Like It, Measure for Measure, and even Romeo and Juliet.
Do people eat medlars now? Wow, I never heard of a medlar. Is it gross? I don't know, man. If you gotta let the fruit rot for a bit before you can eat it, Maybe don't eat it. Some of the worst things I've ever tasted has been rotten fruit. Marrow toast. Oh, bone marrow's tasty.
While it may sound
maybe.
strange to some in the modern era, bone marrow was a relatively popular treat in the Victorian era. Chefs and diners would use a tool called a marrow scoop to remove the yellow marrow from animal bones. And it was much sought after, since as a fatty, rich food, it gave Victorians savory calories. In fact, Queen Victoria herself is reputed to have eaten marrow every day. Her one-time chef, Charles Francatelli, created marrow toast for her. His relatively simple recipe involves serving bone marrow, seasoned with ingredients like parsley and lemon juice, on toast.
That's probably good. Mock turtle soup. I've heard of that. I've heard of them.
Turtle soup was one of the most beloved dishes of the 18th and early 19th centuries on both sides of the Atlantic. But the essential ingredient, turtle meat, was relatively hard to come by and
Don't eat
extremely
turtles, y'all.
expensive.
Leave them alone.
Enterprising Victorian cooks thus made up their own version of the popular soup. It was just like the expensive kind, only it lacked one crucial thing: the turtle. Something
Good.
else needed to be substituted for the eponymous ingredient, hence the mock in mock turtle soup. So what did they use? Well, among other things, mock turtle soup could be made with other types of meat, like calf's head, brains, or organ meats.
Oh. Don't eat that. Pickled oysters.
Oysters were part of the Victorian diet, but many working-class folks didn't always have access to fresh batches of them. So, as horrible as this might seem to people used to modern standards, they often had to weigh the risk of eating spoiled seafood. That being said, a much safer method of enjoying less than fresh seafood was by eating pickled oysters, which would keep longer.
Okay.
Street vendors even sold pickled oysters for the bargain price of 4 for a penny. Not a bad deal considering the only alternative for most folks was to eat rotten ones.
That could be good. A year and a half ago, I went out to eat with my cousin and her husband, and we had raw oysters. And me and my cousin both got norovirus. Usually food poisoning just happens for like a day or so. It was 5 days straight of things coming out both ends constantly. It changed everything that I wanted to eat for the next probably 6 months. I couldn't drink coffee. It was just so gross to me. Anything with spice or like strong flavors, I couldn't handle it. It was really weird. Norovirus. Don't mess with it. Do not eat raw oysters, y'all. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Calf's head. I mean, that sounds disgusting.
When it came to food, Victorians were nothing if not efficient, and they generally used most parts of an animal once it was butchered. This frugality meant that items like calf's head were a relatively popular and affordable cut of meat among all classes. And why wouldn't it be? Calf's head was a surprisingly versatile ingredient and could be prepared in a number of ways. Some recipes
Really?
called for boiling the head, while others explained how to roast it. That being said, preparing a calf's head could
just
be
looking at it,
labor
that's
intensive
disgusting.
and required the cook to remove the bones
That's
and
macabre.
skin. The brains and tongue, on the other hand, seldom went to waste.
Ugh. Calf's foot jelly. Oh, the hooves are used to make
Victorians
gelatin,
loved
right?
gelatins and jellies, even savory ones. To make calf's foot jelly, cooks would have to boil actual calves' hooves in water. The boiled water would then be cooled to form a rich gelatin. Incidentally, this is where it's worth noting that calf's foot jelly is an ancestor of today's gelatin, which is a chief ingredient in many foods, beverages, medications, and other products.
Where are they killing all these
Some
calves?
examples include foods like gelatin desserts, puddings, gummy bears, candy corns, marshmallows, yogurts, cream cheeses, and margarine, as well as a host of other widely consumed products. It also turns up in non-food items like cosmetics, lighting equipment, blue match heads, and photographic films, just to name a few.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's right. In case you didn't already know, gelatin, which is in all of those foods and products, is mostly
yellow.
made from animal parts. Anyway, Victorians believed that calf's foot jelly was a nourishing food for the infirmed, and recipes for it often appeared in cookbooks for invalids. Modern science, for the record, verifies that gelatin may play some role in joint and brain function, as well as
Collagen?
provide benefits to the
Collagen.
skin and hair.
Yeah.
But the
Makes
jury
sense.
is still out on exactly how useful it is in those departments.
I mean, why calves? They're killing these calves and eating their heads and their hooves. Why not let the calf grow up to be an adult and have a long life? That calf could go to college, get a job, have a family. I took collagen supplements for about a month, and my hair grew a lot faster and my fingernails grew faster, but other than that, I didn't notice a difference. I just had to clip my nails more often and get more haircuts, so it was expensive. We got life easy these days, not having to boil calves' hooves just to get some pudding. You know what I'm saying? Strawberry, thumbs up. Full English breakfast, thumbs up. Beer, thumbs up. Bullseyes, thumbs up. Cereals, thumbs up. Cheap vegetables, thumbs up. Cheap meats, thumbs up if it's turned into barbecue. Denby Dale pie. It sounds good, I've never had it. Thumbs up. MEDLARS, thumbs down. Don't eat rotten fruit. Marrow toast, thumbs up. Mock turtle soup, thumbs down. Pickled oysters, thumbs up. I've never had them, but it's better than raw. Calf's head, thumbs down. Calf's foot jelly, thumbs down. Really interesting video. I didn't know that a lot of these things came from that time. The Victorian era seems like a time of very drastic dynamic change. Probably would be fun to live back then, but I'm glad I live now. I'm thankful to be alive now. Thank you for letting me be alive right now. If you're listening. Alright, anyway, really interesting video. Thanks for recommending. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.